The following podcast may contain words, phrases, themes, and/or situations that some may consider offensive or triggering. You have been warned. Welcome to the Disgruntled Cinephile. I'm your host, Stephen Vargas. This is a podcast where we discuss all things film and why the internet has kind of ruined it for me. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Disgruntled Cinephile. Before we get into this show, I wanted to hit you guys on some housekeeping. So this is the final week of our springtime fundraiser, and while we did get the funds to renew the domain, it looks like we're going to be coming up short for the $90 to renew/move hosting companies. Now, I was hoping someone out there could help us, but that's looking less like the case. However, if you want/can, you can still donate to help us move. Links are all in the show notes. And starting this week, we're going to begin a shift of discussing movies from my Generation X childhood, discussing movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'll be staying away from some major films like Star Wars or Back to the Future and the Indiana Jones trilogy. Yes, I said trilogy. And we're going to pretend none of those other movies ever happened. Lastly, we have our Patreon. As little as $5 a month, you can get early access to this and the Lazy Geeks ad-free. Also, we are dropping the audio-only versions of these on YouTube. And they are a week behind the regular release episodes. So, two, if you're getting them from Patreon. So, just so you know, along with the Patreon, we are still accepting the one-time donations for all the shows on the Lazy Geeks Network. And if you would like to get a shout-out for your donation, head over to thelazygeeks.wordpress.com/donations for more details on how to do so. Now that all the housekeeping's out of the way, we'll be right back with more after this. You tired of the click and engagement bait trash you read on social media or that fills hours of geek podcasts? The Lazy Geeks have been taking that clickbait clutter out of it since 2010. And in 2026, we are continuing that mission with an alternating style of episodes. One week you'll get a classic show with Steven and Adam discussing whatever they want to talk about, proving you aren't going crazy. The next, Steven will go into deep dives on topics that fill our social media feeds, illustrating that you aren't insane and they're doing it for the money, rage baiting you into a dystopian social media wasteland. Subscribe now to The Lazy Geeks. New episodes drop every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspector 71. Inspector 71.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Oh! You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
To the city of San Francisco. I will enjoy killing one person every day until you pay $100,000. Scorpio. Send Inspector Callahan. He's a madman loose.
Play it straight down the line, okay? You just go where you're told and do what you're told. You got it?
Why do they call you Dirty Harry?
I take every dirty job that comes along.
Where does it say you've got a right to kick down doors, torture a suspect, deny legal counsel?
You don't listen, do you?
It's the law.
Well, then the law is crazy. When are you people gonna stop messing around with this guy? He's gonna kill again.
All right, Pig. This is how we play. One wrong move, the girl dies.
He's gotta be stopped now. Now you know why they call me Dirty Harry.
I never really watched a Dirty Harry movie when I was growing up. And while there were films released just after I was born, the third film was released when I was 3. So the second to last came out when I was 10, and the final installment came out when I was a sophomore in high school. But by then, it was pretty much a joke, like all the Rocky sequels. And it was within the last 10 years that I decided to check them out. And I made it through the first 3, but I haven't gotten around to the last 2 yet. Much like many movies that spawn a franchise, the first film is very different than its sequels. And you see it in the Halloween franchises, same with the Nightmare on Elm Street series, even the Fast and Furious and Lethal Weapon series. Now, go back and watch the first film of those series, and then follow it up with the sequels. They all fall into a format that stays the same in nearly every sequel. That is, unless you end up going into space. Now, Dirty Harry gets a benefit of being called the archetype for the rogue cop that littered 80s cinema. A cop that plays by his own rules, deals with criminals in his own way when the law fails. However, Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman in The French Connection, was the first out of the gate. It was released in October of 71, while Dirty Harry debuted that December. Now, The French Connection was a bigger hit with half the budget of Dirty Harry, and it was Harry that had a bigger cultural impact. Now, could it be due to the fact that The French Connection was based on a true story? Could it be due to Clint Eastwood's swag in the movie? It's all possible. The swagger Eastwood had as Harry Callahan is someone that is cool, calm, and collected. A tough-as-nails cop that's trying to clean up the streets. And he has a reputation of having partners either killed or injured. And the characterization he created in 1971 lives on through the 2020s. Everyone from Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and really any action star of the last 50 years owes their character development to Eastwood. Following the beats of the film, it creates a rogue cop narrative. But it goes a little deeper in establishing why he's called Dirty Harry by his fellow police officers. And you even see parodies of that in The Naked Gun and a television series that parodied the character in the 80s called Sledgehammer. It's an amazingly funny series that follows all the tropes and pokes fun at the conservative ideal of a tough cop. Now, I know some of you are probably rolling their eyes thinking, there he goes, throwing politics into it. But you can see in this movie as a simple cop versus criminal story, but there are some political overtones within the film that linger on in the 80s. Much of this comes from following the civil rights movement and the conservative state of California at the time. And much like many movies that started franchises, the dark and heavy tones and themes of the original film are cast aside in the sequels. And in fact, the establishment of cop being in a failed justice system that does a complete 180 when it comes to the sequel Magnum Force. And I can't wait to talk about that one in a later episode. But we'll be right back with more after this quick break. Hey there, podcast listener. Steven here. And I wanted to let you guys know we are in the final weeks of our springtime donation drive. We are still $90 away from our goal for switching hosting companies. And if we fail to come up with those funds, we will lose the website and the use of our domain. Now, the domain is secure, but we won't be able to direct you to thelazygeeks.com with an active website. So if you would like to help us out, you can make a one-time donation through either Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. This will not only get our thanks, but a special shout out in a future episode. Any further donations will go to make all of the podcasts self-sustaining or get me a Dr. Pepper and my cat his bougie food. And just a reminder, we have a Patreon now. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to both The Lazy Geeks and The Disgruntled Cinephile, as well as access to polls. Higher tiers will allow you access to a new mini-series or special Patreon-only content. So head on over to patreon.com/thelazygeeks. Now that the PBS fundraising is done, let's get back to the episode.
You're lucky I'm not indicting you for assault with intent to commit murder.
What?
Where the hell does it say you've got a right to kick down doors, torture suspects, deny medical attention and legal counsel? Where have you been? Does Escobedo ring a bell? Miranda? I mean, you must have heard of the Fourth Amendment. What I'm saying is that man had rights.
Well, I'm all broken up about that man's rights.
You should be. I've got news for you, Callahan. As soon as he's well enough to leave the hospital, he walks.
What are you talking about?
He's free.
And you're letting him go?
We have to. We can't try him.
And why is that?
Because I'm not wasting $500,000 of the taxpayers' money on a trial we can't possibly win. The problem is we don't have any evidence.
Evidence? What the hell do you call that?
I call it nothing. Zero.
Are you trying to tell me that ballistics can't match the bullet up to this rifle?
It does not matter what ballistics can do. This rifle might make a nice souvenir, but it's inadmissible as evidence.
And who says that?
It's the law.
Well, then the law is crazy.
Like many films in Hollywood, Dirty Harry bounced around more than a kid in an inflatable castle. The script, originally titled Dead Right, was written by the husband and wife team of Harry Julian Fink and Rita M. Fink. It was originally about a hard-edged New York City police inspector, Harry Callahan, who was determined to stop Davis, a serial killer, even if he had to skirt the law and accept standards of policing, blurring the distinction between cop and criminal, addressing the question of how far a free democratic society can go to protect itself. And the original draft ended with a police sniper instead of Callahan shooting the criminal. Now, another earlier version of the story was set in Seattle, Washington, and 4 more drafts of the script were written. And many of the critics of the time of its release were mixed. Many people loved the storytelling, but were repulsed by the violence. Some saw a lot of conservative politics within the film, and as someone who saw the film about a decade ago, I saw all the Republican attitudes about liberal policies growing up in the 80s and watching these sort of films. Now, many of the rogue cop tropes are an indictment actually, of liberal policies that give criminals rights to a fair trial. And when you look at it from a 2026 perspective, law enforcement has absolute immunity when it comes to corruption and murdering of innocents. IndieWire did a 53-year anniversary piece about the movie, not really pushing hard on the political overtones of the film, and they cited a 1972 interview with Don Siegel, the director, for the New York Times. He said, quote, "I'm a liberal. I lean to the left. Clint is a conservative. He leans to the right. At no point in making the film did we ever talk politics. I don't make political movies," end quote. Now, the piece mentioned the original writers of the script, but never had a comment from them, and nor the second writer that is credited in the film, Dean Reisner. And he started off as a child actor, but became a professional Clint Eastwood writer, seemed to always punch up his scripts. And John Milius, who was a hardcore conservative, he wrote movies like Red Dawn. He was uncredited in having a hand in punching up this script. Now, there was a message coming across. Now, what most people miss when doing a superficial glance at the film, that it is a genuinely good movie. It is very tense. It draws you in. It has character development. And I enjoy this movie very much. It's actually become a favorite of mine. And Harry's character is given a lot of room to build and breathe. And while his antics aren't involving blowing up buildings or major car chases, his presence alone comes with a lot of gravitas. And the politics of the time was unsettled. It was the end of the civil rights movement. Democratic Governor Pat Brown lost re-election to an actor-turned-politician, Ronald Reagan. And with Oakland having confrontations between law enforcement and the Black Panthers, student protests, and all the major universities in California, having a film take place in San Francisco was a choice. Now, it is important to say that many of the quote-unquote legal issues are similar to what you see today in Christian conservative media. letting him go due to reasons was outrageous. And very similar to the story that begins with, the Bible is banned. And the idea that criminals have rights is something that should be enforced. And during my lifetime, I've seen so many people serving time for crimes they didn't commit due to police corruption. And the Central Park Five immediately comes to mind. And people killed by police in botched raids. Hell, ICE agents murdering people in the streets. Now, the killer in the movie is loosely based on the Zodiac Killer. And for the uninitiated, the Zodiac murders happened between 1968 and 1969. He killed 6 out of 7 victims in 4 confirmed incidences. And he taunted police with letters and ciphers until 1974, when they suddenly stopped. The book and the subsequent film adaptation, Zodiac, which was done by David Fincher, and I love that movie. It's such a great movie. Great book adaptation. They suspected a murderer, but he was never caught, or at least died before he could be brought to justice. And the character used the name Scorpio as an indicator to the audience where this is coming from. And the actor playing the killer should be a fan for Star Trek Deep Space Nine fans. Andrew Robinson, who played Garak for the entire 7-season run, played Scorpio in this film. And I loved his character in that show. And he was actually handpicked by Eastwood after seeing him in a performance. Again, with all the political undertones in the film, it is still a great film. And you can make a message movie that is entertaining. And it works so well that we see it in every rogue cop movie for the next 20 years. And not to mention that he gets some iconic one-liners. The "Do you feel lucky" line appears early in the film.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But Ian, this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
This film, like many others, fall under the Mandela effect for films. So many people quote the line incorrectly. So many people will say, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" when the actual line is what you just heard. And another one that comes under that is from Empire Strikes Back. Vader is commonly known for saying, "Luke, I am your father," when the correct line is, "No, I am your father." Captain Kirk is commonly known for saying, "Beam me up, Scotty," which he never says in the series or films. And the closest was from the Star Trek TV series when he said, "Scotty, beam me up." And one little fun fact, before the bank robbery scene, Harry walks to the burger joint to get a hot dog. And when he walks from his car to the burger joint, we see a movie marquee in the background. And the film on the marquee is "Play Misty for Me." And it's a slight nod because that film starred and was directed by Clint Eastwood and was released earlier that year. And in fact, he was actually directing that movie when he was approached to star in Dirty Harry. Now, I've seen this movie, like I said, like a dozen times, and I just noticed that on this actual viewing for the review. Now, the film is light on action. It is heightened by the constant cat and mouse game between Harry and Scorpio. It's also important to note that the killer is never given a name. However, he manipulates the law to allow himself to go free, which is a bit of a stretch in the real world. Now, many people that have Fox News understanding of the law will claim this is how it is in California. But as someone who lived in the state for 50 plus years, I can guarantee you it isn't. But it does set up the trope for the next 40 years in action films. However, the trope doesn't age well when you see what police are allowed to get away with in the 2020s. And you see you see in films cops getting tongue lashings for destruction of private property. Yet in 2024, a little girl was shot and killed when cops fired a bullet that went through a Walmart wall into its dressing room. The police were never held responsible. And in our post 9/11 environment of a militarized police force, police are given nearly absolute immunity to conduct business as they wish. That doesn't change depending on whether your state is blue or red. And remember, district attorneys need law enforcement support when they run for office. And if you prosecute cops, they will not get their support. You can't run on pro-law when you're labeled anti-cop. Now, within the first act, Harry is teamed with a new partner. His last partner is in the hospital after being injured on the job. Chico plays the now stereotypical college-educated cop. And it doesn't play throughout the film, but it is brought up when he's introduced to Harry. The cops that perceive college-educated cops as a threat because it's something you can't study about. It's about guts. Not to mention, he's a Mexican.
You from around here?
Yeah, but I went to school, San Jose State.
Like ball?
No, I boxed. Light heavy.
Just what I needed as a college boy.
You haven't found one thing you like about me yet, have you?
Well, it's early yet. Get your degree?
Sociology?
Sociology. Oh, you'll go far, as if you live.
I intend to.
Inspector Callahan. Just don't let your college degree get you killed, because I'm about to get killed along with you.
I'll remember that.
Hey, Hero, nice work yesterday.
All right, Fatso. Wrestler wants to see you.
You're a sweet man, Harry.
There is one question, Inspector Callahan. Why do they call you Dirty Harry?
Well, that's one thing about our Harry. Doesn't play any favorites. Harry hates everybody. Limeys, Nicks, Hebes, Fat Dagos, niggers, honkies, chinks, you name it.
How's he feel about Mexicans?
Ask him.
Especially Spicks.
Now, after this clip, you can see a slight wink Harry gives his, fellow cop. So we know he's kind of just fucking around with the new partner. But as the film goes on, Chico is on Harry's side. But the change happens when Harry is called randomly to help a jumper from the top of a building. You can see that it becomes a slight homage in 1987's Lethal Weapon. But it brings a new understanding to Chico about Harry. When Harry finally does admit that now, quote, "You know why they call me Dirty Harry," end quote. And that's because he does all the dirty jobs that comes along. A line Chico repeats to the captain when Harry is tasked to deliver the ransom alone without backup. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that Harry is a tough-as-nails cop. He isn't. When Chico gets wounded and Harry meets Chico's wife, he shows a lot of empathy. And when she tells him that Chico won't be coming back to the police force, Harry understands. Much of that reasoning comes from a very muted history of his ex-wife, revealing that she couldn't take the life of an officer's wife. And I understand, as a viewer, that would have to be one of the most stressful lives to lead. Along with being the wife of a firefighter or someone in the military, any job that could result in your loved one not coming home. And by the end of the film, you side with Harry, even if you haven't by then, fully. Because when Scorpio kidnaps a bus full of children on a school bus, and you want him dead. Even people that wouldn't normally side with violence would want him dead. So he doesn't end up harming any of the children. And with modern viewers, violence is more acceptable when dealing with children or pets. I mean, John Wick created a whole universe after killing his dog. And I get it. Now, one of the things that makes the final showdown between them so epic is Harry's talent to inflict fear into Scorpio, taunting him with the same manner that he taunted the police. Then Harry using the same line as he did at the beginning of the movie about how many bullets he used, which makes it more epic. And what makes the end of the film so much more telling is when Harry throws away his badge after taking down Scorpio. It's an ending you don't suspect for modern movie audiences. And normally you would see him back on the force, by today's standards, you'd see him back on the force, breaking in a new partner, and then he gets that Dirty Harry call, and then the credits roll. But here, we get a final mission. He defied the captain, the commissioner, and the mayor, and he knows he would be held responsible, so he might as well quit before he got fired. Or he threw the badge away because he blurred the line between being a cop or a criminal. It's ambiguous as to how he felt by throwing it away. But I personally believe he threw it away due to being an old cop in a new world. And with all the new laws that makes his job harder, he might as well walk away. And I mean, because what is it worth? He lost his partner or partners and his wife to it. A how does history get past people like me moment. Obviously, it was retconned because, there's like a grip of sequels after this. But what is interesting is that Dirty Harry has made a cultural trope of the American police officer. For over 50 years, this rogue cop trope has become a permanent staple in film and television. And yeah, they've altered it somewhat in the intervening years, adding a buddy cop design, usually in the form of Dirty Harry-style cop with a new hip partner. Parodies usually include a Dirty Harry kind of character, moment, or reference to the character. And even cops being divorced is a nod to his character, and because, they're married to the job. One of the things that surprises me is its sequel. In this movie, Harry does a job that no one really likes, and attempting to do his job to the best of his knowledge, which sometimes means violating the law. And using the same reasoning many cops in 2026 use in rejecting oversight. Well, we can't have oversight, then we can't do our job, which means if someone's going to see you doing your job the right way, you can't do your job. Now, in this film, you see Harry reject the laws that protect criminals. Cops can't keep the peace if criminals keep getting away. Yet in the sequel, released just 2 years later, he's pushed to uphold those laws that he doesn't agree with. Nearly a 180 from what he depicted in the previous movie. And something I think the movies of the 80s failed to understand is their version of Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry is a good movie, and it manages to be both entertaining and thought-provoking. Movie whether you like it or not. Now, from a film perspective, it launched many careers of action heroes in the 80s and created a genre, as well as the trope of the modern rogue cop. And even if you believe cops should follow the law, it does make you side with him. And from a political perspective, you can see the right-wing agenda in the perspective of the time, not just after the civil rights movement and into anti-war demonstrations, because California becoming a red state. Tough on crime rhetoric against the rise of long-haired hippies, yet it is still the same ideology that conservatives use and believe is happening in 2026. Yet, while believing this is the world Dirty Harry would like you to see, you realize that he wouldn't. Everybody needs rules, even Dirty Harry. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what I'm doing here, you have two ways to help. One, if you like to make this show self-sustaining, buy me a beer, or feed my cat his bougie food, you can make a one-time donation through either PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Check the show notes for details and links. Or two, you can sign up for our Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to our episodes, as well as take part in polls and user suggestions. Head over to patreon.com for more info. If giving money isn't your thing, well, you can share us on social media or review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This will make the algorithm gods promote our show to an unsuspecting public. You can check out all my content, including our other podcasts, at thelazygeeks.wordpress.com. And you can stalk me on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, and TikTok at The Lazy Geeks. Visit the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thelazygeeks. And if you're old school and want to email us, do it at thelazygeeksnetwork@gmail.com. So that's it for me this week. Until next time, we can all like movies for a different reason. You just don't need to be a dick about it.